Okay, welcome to a new episode of Nate's MMA Corner. I'm Nate, and if you watch my show, you're in my corner. Today's episode is a post-fight show for UFC 195, Lawler vs. Condit for the UFC Welterweight Championship of the World. This fight ended in controversy. It was a split decision win for Robbie Lawler. I actually scored, so this is a post-fight show of the main card, do a rundown of all the main card fights and what happened. So let's get started with the main event, which was Robbie Lawler versus Carlos Condit for the UFC Welterweight Championship. This fight ended in controversy, split decision win for Robbie Lawler. And I think I'm the only person in the world that actually had all 5 rounds for Carlos Condit. A lot of people had it 3 or 4 rounds for Carlos Condit, but I had all 5 rounds for Carlos Condit. Here's why. It was 28 to 12 significant strikes landed in round 1 for Carlos Condit. Then in round 2, you had 17 significant strikes landed by Carlos Condit compared to Robbie Lawler's 10. Then in round 3, which is the big controversy one, you had 22 significant strikes landed for Carlos Condit compared to 11 for Robbie Lawler. Yes, there was a knockdown, but nothing big happened with it. Then in round 4, you had 47 significant strikes landed for Carlos Condit compared to Robbie Lawler's 6. Then in round 5, you had 62 landed for Carlos Condit compared to 53 for Robbie Lawler. Okay, so altogether, that makes it, it made it 100 and, let's see, it had, altogether it was a lot. It was really, really, really lopsided on the strikes landed per round. And like I always say on my previous episodes, if it goes to a decision, you got to go off points because it's a points match at that point. Carlos Condit outpointed Robbie Lawler each round, and if it's not every round decisively, then you got to break it down who won what round and whatnot. Carlos Condit, he clearly won this fight. You could argue Robbie Lawler is a more accurate striker, but he landed less strikes on each round. That's really, because really all that matters is the ones that land. You can't really talk about the ones that don't land. You could say, oh, aggression, blah, 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 but aggression only counts for so much. When a guy lands twice as many strikes in that round, it's like takedowns. If you get a takedown and you don't do anything with it, and the guy pops right back up, I would say that's worth obviously some in the fight, but not as much as he takes him down and grounds and pounds him for the whole round. That's a whole another story where, okay, obviously that's a round winner. Who's going to argue with that? I like Robbie Lawler though. I picked on my pre-fight show Carlos Condit to win this because I thought this would stay stand-up and Carlos Condit would knock him out in the 3rd round. Didn't exactly happen that way, but it did stay standing like I said it would. And Carlos did, outpoint Robbie Lawler in those first two rounds. And so it was kind of looking at first the way I thought it would, and then when it ended I was like, okay, Carlos Condit is the new champ. And then when it was read differently, I was kind of surprised. But Robbie Lawler, he took a beating and he kept moving forward, and that round 5, was one of the closest rounds, and Robbie Lawler went for broke in that fifth and final round, which I applaud him for. Glad he did. And, you know, I'm not too bent out of shape he won. I mean, he's still one of my favorite fighters. And I do feel like both guys did, at points in the fight, definitely pull that trigger and really want to win this thing. You know, you could argue, well, Robbie Lawler took it easy the first couple of rounds. But, you know, another way of looking at that is the feeling out process. And then the later rounds, Robbie Lawler, you know, round 3, you could say, well, maybe he was going for it then, and then round 5, he was definitely going for it. So, and then round 4, Carlos Condit was definitely trying to pull that trigger, I think, and finish the fight. I don't think he wanted to go to the judges either. So I think both fighters were going for it and have nothing to be ashamed of. I'm happy that Robbie Lawler went for broke though in that fifth round. I mean, yeah, that just, for me, that said a lot about him. You know, that, you know, don't leave it in the hands of the judges, because I mean, he wasn't sure if he was winning the fight, and Carlos, you know, he was trying to survive that fifth round, but not only that, he was trying to go for broke in that fifth and final round a little bit too. Even though he probably thought he was winning, he still wanted to finish that fight in the fifth round. So all in all, you know, yeah, this was a stand-up war pretty much all 5 rounds. There's really no ground game at all, just like I said on my pre-fight show. It was a win for Robbie Lawler that I think he will learn from. Then in the heavyweight division, in the co-main event, we had Stipe Miocic versus Andrei Arlovski. This was 54 seconds, TKO punches, round 1. Yes, Stipe won, quick TKO, and hopefully Stipe finally gets a title shot. Then in the welterweight division, we had Albert Tumenov versus Lorenz Larkin. This one was a split decision for win for Albert Tumenov, and I felt Tumenov did enough to win a unanimous decision here. But credit to Lorenz, he was trying to definitely outstrike Albert and land some good shots, and he did land some good clean shots. On my pre-fight show, I picked Albert to win this. But what shocked me is that it went the distance. I was not expecting to go the distance, because both these guys are stand-up fighters. They both have knockout power. And so credit to Lorenz for surviving all 3 rounds and putting up a fight, and according to the judges, you know, winning some rounds in this. Yeah, so Albert Tumenov, he's a force to be reckoned with in the welterweight division. It's a big win for him, beating Lorenz Larkin, a UFC veteran and a Strikeforce veteran. Then in the featherweight division, we had Brian Ortega versus Diego Brandao. Brian Ortega, submission triangle choke, round 3. It was impressive. I think Brian Ortega went for broke in that 3rd round. Diego Brandao really had his moments in the first couple rounds, I felt. Not that it was too lopsided, but I mean, Diego Brandao was definitely trying stuff in that first couple rounds. Then, yeah, round 3, it was submission triangle choke win for Brian Ortega, who really was able to work that in good with his jiu-jitsu. I mean, yeah, you know, he trains with the Gracies, so I had him winning this fight. And I think Brian Ortega is a standout fighter in the featherweight division. He's a guy that you're definitely going to want to keep eyes on. Then, to kick off the main card in the lightweight division, we had Abel Trillo versus Tony Sims. Now, this is one of the fights I got wrong. I picked Tony Sims to win by knockout in this one, I believe. And it was submission guillotine choke, round 1. Yeah, I mean, it's just Abel rocked Tony Sims and was able to sink in the guillotine choke, and it was a good win. I mean, I always, when I think of Abel Trio, I don't really think submissions, I think knockouts, because the way he knocked out Jamie Varner was just one of those knockouts that you don't forget. You know, just amazing. And he's a big, stocky lightweight. So good clean win for Abel Trio, first round submission guillotine choke. And that wraps up my post-fight show for UFC 195. Stay tuned for my next episode, which will be pre-fight for Dillashaw versus Cruz for the UFC Bantamweight Championship of the World. Until then, see ya.